Nothing left yet. Don't know. So, are people coming in? If somebody's interested in knowing how day and night works on a flat Earth, you can join. Come in, stay here, listen to some knowledge about flat Earth. How does day and night work on a flat Earth? People ask, how does day and night work on a flat Earth? Not understanding. How does day and night work on a flat Earth? Are you interested? Then stay here. I can explain. You can type in the comments if you want to know more about it. Day and night on a flat Earth map. On a flat Earth, not just a map. So you have the sun circling above flat Earth. Okay. So that describes the circle of the sun above flat Earth. Not on the flat Earth, but above flat Earth. And its center is north. Okay. So the paper here, that's our flat Earth. This is north. And now we have a circle around north which describes the sun. The pathway of the sun above flat Earth. We have the paper, which is the flat Earth. It's flat. Then we have the north. And then we have a beautiful circle made with a compass. Are people gonna stay here or not? How does day and night work on a flat Earth? Hi, how does day and night work on a flat Earth? The Earth is flat, that's north, and you have a circle that describes the pathway of the sun. Okay, so nobody stays here. Day and night above flat Earth. Sun circling above flat Earth, creating day and night. How does that work? Anybody want to know about flat Earth? You have day and night also on a flat Earth. Very simple how this works. But nobody's here. Don't I explain? Okay. Hi, flat Earth. Day and night also occurs on a flat Earth, and let me explain how. This is north, and then you have a circle around north, which is the solar circle, and the sun moves above, circles above flat Earth around north. So if you are north and the circle, the radius, is small enough, you can see the sun 24 hours. Okay, so if you're here and the sun goes around in that circular movement, you will see the sun 24 hours. But nobody's actually in north. We are all somewhere down here, right in this area, most of us. Or here that would be the equator, let's say. Then we're around this area. And the sun comes by when it's day, and when it's night, the sun just goes so far away from us that because of perspective, it moves out of view. And the earth, that is actually flat, just blocks the view due to perspective. And how the visual sense works. And not just the visual sense, but in general perspective. So how does day and night work on a flat earth? Very simple. It's really not rocket science. As if rocket science was that complicated. They just make it look complicated. Hello, anybody here? Anyone wants to know about day and night on a flat earth? How does day and night happen? Would be much better if we had a flat earth map right here, but it is what it is. Just to explain things quickly. So you have north, the center of the circular pathway, and the center of that flat surface thereof, because the sun is basically melting the ice. So if the sun doesn't touch any area right here, light doesn't get there, heat doesn't get there, so all of this is ice, right? But here, where the sun is doing its circular movement, that's where the ice melts, and underneath on a flat earth, life is possible. Okay, so that's why also our surface, the earth, is kind of a circular, has a circular shape, but it doesn't mean that it's ending where the ice is, you know, it's just going on. How does day and night work on a flat earth? Comment if you have anything to say, or stay here and let me explain how it works. North, circular path of the sun, around north, above, flat earth, that's the path of the sun. Seasons also very easily explainable. The radius of the circle just changes. Doesn't make sense if nobody is here. Start explaining things. Then halfway through my explanation, people come in and I have to start again. It would be better if people stayed here for a little bit. And if anybody is here from the government, do you hear it in the background? This noise? Siren noise all the time. It would be changeable easily. Going to call communication. Noise reduction in cities. Before you invent stupid cars, reduce the noise in cities. The noise of the existing cars. And I mean the sirens. It's very easy today car-to-car communication. Nobody needs these trumpets. No one needs to know. Day and night on a sun. Day and night on a flat earth. On a sun earth. Day and night. Day and night. How does day and night work on a flat earth? People ask. It's very simple. Nobody's in north, but the sun circles around north. So, if we are somewhere here, the distance to the sun changes while it's doing its course. Sun making its course around north. We're in this point here. So there are different distances during the day to the sun, and that creates this whole illusion of day and night. That means when the sun is at its zenith to your position, it's day, very short distance. But if it's midnight, it's the longest distance to the sun. And that comes with perspective that hides the sun and so blocks the light from getting to you. Very simple. Straightforward. No headaches. So the sun also has a horizon. And for example, when the sun is at the equator, then its horizon ends at north. So you can imagine if you were the sun looking to north, you wouldn't see it. Anything beyond north you would not see from this position, because that's the horizon of the sun. So if you are north, you might actually see a little bit of light as the sun is circling. If the sun is coming closer to you, radius is decreasing, then you have a 24-hour sun when you're north, because you're within its horizon. People come in and then they escape. Are you gonna stay here day and night on a flat earth? Are you ready? Day and night also occurs on a flat earth. Very easy to explain. You have north, for example, and the sun above flat Earth is circling in a circular way, of course. And if you are, for example, here, which would be above the equator and below north, then you have different distances to the sun as the sun is going around the circle. So if you are here, then if the sun is here at its zenith, of course you have day because the distance is very short. But at midnight, the sun is supposed to be here, so the distance gets very, very long from here to there. So it comes with perspective. Distance creates perspective. That means the sun is being hidden by that piece of earth that is all between that distance. So it's a visual barrier and the light cannot reach to your position. And so the sun has to circle around and come back. Do it circle above flat earth and then come into view again. And if you're here, of course, then the distance decreases until its zenith. That's why the zenith point of the sun is the highest point. And then it decreases again going to sunset. And then the distance just is too long from this position, for example, to see the sun. And in another way, or even better to explain, is as of a second circle. For example, we say this is our position. We draw a second circle. Oh, I have to do it with one hand, holding the other hand. Yeah, holding the phone with the other hand. Wait a minute. We draw a second circle and we clearly see what I mean with the distances. So that's now the center point of the second circle. Where was it? I think it was here. That's the second point. And now you see that the sun goes down here. Okay? Wait a minute for the noise. I don't know if you can hear that. What's going on? It's just brutal. As if we couldn't live stream around the whole world, but these guys still have to use trumpets to warn some cars that are just a few meters away. Come on. But anyway, you have north here. Okay, the sun circles around north, and your position is here. So the sun goes around here. It's rising in this point because the distance matches with its horizon. Okay, you see? Then it's rising in the sky to your vision, coming to the zenith. There it is at its highest altitude or angle to your position, and all that is being created by perspective as well. And then to the sunset, it's going down again, and that's where the sunset is. And then the distance from that point is increasing too much. Okay, because that's making a third circle or a half circle. Wait a minute, I have to do it with one hand. Not so easy. What that means is the sun has a horizon. If you were the sun and you were looking from the sun's altitude into distance, your vision would end here. And that's exactly where you are, right? You are in this point. So the sun has a horizon, and that horizon is exactly there. So if the sun goes any further than that, the light cannot reach you anymore, and that is start of the twilight. And of course, if the sun is up here, and the circle will be this. Can you see that? Don't know. Circle will end here. Okay. More light. That means from here to there is light. But from here to you, to your position, is night. There is no light that can reach you. So that means all here it's dark, but that circle will be bright because the sun is in this position. And so the sun takes that circle with itself along its path. Okay? And so if you have you can take any position. If that is north, you can take any position from. You can also be in north and then realize that you will have a 24-hour sun half of the year, almost half of the year. But if the radius increases, the sun goes beyond that point. Okay? So then you cannot see the light anymore because of perspective, because it goes over a certain distance. And so if the sun, for example, is here, it has a certain horizon in relation to the flat earth because it has a certain altitude. Okay, so that horizon line is always the same, and it will be here. So if you are north, you don't get any light. Okay, and the further the sun goes away, of course, this moves with it. So also people here all of a sudden cannot reach and cannot see any light. And that's how day and night works on flat earth. Very simple. If you have any questions, ask. The heck? And also another thing is why, for example, do we kind of always have the same size of the sun, although the distances are changing? For example, the distance here, if we stay here again, let's say we are here, sun is rising in this point, coming to us on that circle, then this is the longest distance, right? While when it comes to us, the distance decreases, it's getting shorter. And then, if it moves to the sunset, the distance from viewer point is getting longer again. So people argue, why does the size of the sun not change? Boy, the sirens in the background are annoying. Why does the size of the sun not change that much? Although the distances change. Because from this view, it really looks like, wow, that's a long distance, very long distance, while this is a very, very short distance. Right? But in truth, this distance is just a little bit longer than this distance, just a little bit, because here you forget that the sun also has an altitude. When it's at its zenith, okay, to your position, then a sun has an altitude, not just the distance we see right here, okay? We have a distance that goes there, but there's an altitude. So from the side, it looks like this, okay? Altitude, you are here, so what we see on this map, on a 2D map, is just that distance, but there is an altitude, a height also involved. So that increases the line of sight. So if you were to draw this line down here, it would end up there, right? Longer than x. And if that's x, of course, the true distance to the sun is not x, it's a little bit longer. So you see that, of course, this line is still longer, but this line is not as short as people might say from this view. Okay? So another thing is, if you have a triangle and you elongate it, what happens, and you keep the height the same, what happens, and this is just a sketch, of course, what happens is that this line, which is the line of sight, the true distance to the sun, and the geo distance on Earth, they start to align. Okay, the further the sun moves away. So you can basically say the true distance from observer to the sun is almost the same as from observer to the subsolar point. And this is happening at, for example, the sunrise and the sunset. So here at sunset and sunrise and sunset, you can neglect the altitude due to perspective, which I just explained. This is what's happening in perspective. Because true distances are involved, distances increase, the angle here gets shorter, smaller, and that aligns this line with that line. So you can basically say from here to there, that's the line of sight and the distance, but here at the zenith, you have to add for the altitude. So the line of sight distance is actually like this. So you see now, if you align this distance with that distance, they are not so much different. They might be like that and like this long. So what makes up for this difference in distance? To get the same size of the sun throughout the day? That's refraction. Because refraction happening in the atmosphere magnifies objects that give off light. So if the sun is giving off light and you watch it through an atmosphere that has humidity, then a sun that is in truth like this appears to be like that because of refraction. That's how you see it. That's how it appears to you visually. Okay? But if you close your eyes and you could somehow feel or somehow recognize the true size of the sun, you know, okay, that it's that, but what we see is an illusion because of refraction. So even if the distance is shorter here at the zenith and longer at sunrise and sunset, because of refraction, we always kind of get the same size of the sun. And it's all part of this illusion, visual illusion, creating day and night, creating the notion that some people have that, oh, Earth is a ball and the Earth must have a curve in order for the sun to sink, for the sun to go away, and in order to have day and night, but it doesn't have to be. If you understand perspective and you understand that also the sun has a horizon above that flat surface, just like everything that has an altitude. Our eyes have an altitude, for example, 2 meters above sea level. Then we have a horizon of 5 kilometers. So let's just change this graphic here into our position at the beach. Okay, we're looking from 2 meters of altitude into distance on flat Earth, then that point is 5 kilometers away. Okay, but the sun is much higher. Sun has, for example, 5,000 kilometers above Earth, then its horizon is much longer, much further away, a few thousand kilometers, okay, from its subsolar point to that horizon. And once you understand that, then light cannot go beyond that point, beyond the sun's horizon. That everything that is beyond the sun's horizon is basically dark and night. Because of perspective, then you're much closer to understanding how the earth can be flat and still day and night is happening just as we perceive it in reality. So coming back to this is north, our position might be here, then the sun is circling around north, and it has, if we go back to that sunset point, it has a circle, a horizon line of itself, and it takes that circle with itself. So if the sun is here, that circle is, as I have slightly sketched it here, around here. So everything is illuminated within that circle, but beyond that circle, there is night. Because of perspective. Very simple. If the sun comes here, carrying its own circumference with it, illuminating that space, that flat earth, right before the sunrise, you don't see it because the distance is too long. And the horizon of the sun is not yet hitting you. But once that point is crossed and the sun rises and you see it in the sky, its horizon, or you are encompassed in its horizon then, in this position. Okay, and of course, takes a few hours until the sunset, and that's how long you are encompassed in the sun's horizon. And then once it's there again, point comes where you are basically sitting or standing right on top of that horizon of the sun. And as it is moving away, further away, that horizon line is also moving with the sun and then creating night to your position. And why again, why do we see the same size of the sun during the day? Very simple. because of refraction, magnifying objects, and because due to perspective and angles, these distances align. The ground distance from observer to subsolar point aligns with the direct eye line of sight distance to the sun. The further it goes away, because this angle is getting smaller and smaller, so these two lines assimilate each other because the height is constant. It's a constant height above flat Earth. And so if it gets smaller, if the sun is coming closer to you, we need to take the height, the altitude into account again, because making it even clearer, if we keep the height constant and the sun is like this, very steep angle, 60-degree maybe, then you realize that distance x from observer to subsolar point is very short compared to the line of sight to the sun, simply because that angle has increased. So we need to take into account that we have an altitude here. And so if people just look at that, at a 2D version here, then of course they just see, well, I'm here, the sun is there, oh, such a short distance, and but to the sunrise and to the sunset, it's so much longer, because they forget that there's an altitude involved. And so then they realize, oh, yeah, right, the line of sight, that's what's important when we talk about the size of the sun, right? The true distance from observer to the sun is much longer than just that. And they almost align with each other. Of course, this distance is still longer than this distance, but because of refraction, which magnifies objects, due to humidity in the air, due to breaking of the light or dispersion, it's actually dispersing the light in this way that it looks like it's magnifying objects, and that creates this whole illusion that the sun always has the same size visually. In truth, the size of the sun changes, but visually, all that we see is the light coming from the sun. And if it goes through material, matter, a layer of air, atmosphere, then there's dispersion involved, refraction. That's what it's called, and it magnifies objects. Very simple. Day and night can happen also on a flat Earth. Does happen every day on a flat Earth. So we're just describing what's happening. Very straightforward, very simple. No headaches, no complex, oh, rotational forces, whatnot, tilts, all the stuff that they have. It's very, very simple. But of course, to some maybe too boring, because where are the aliens at? If we don't live on a ball, on a rotating, spinning ball, it spins through endless space. Where are the aliens? People get disappointed because they don't realize how distorted their reality really is. How distorted, how other people have distorted their reality. to the point of believing that there are some aliens out there. And if people ask, yeah, why would the Earth be the only flat object in the sky or in this universe? Well, when they look in the sky, they see only round objects. They see the sun is round, they see the moon is round. They look at stars, planets that they call planets, which aren't even planets, but they call them like this anyway. All these are round, and then they wonder, well, or they say, they argue, why should the Earth be flat? But then you have to question them, on which other object that they see is life happening. So if the Earth is the only planet where life is happening, chances are very high that it's also the only object that is actually flat, while all the other objects are just up in the sky, spherical, round, looking like discs. We don't actually know if they are spherical. All we see is that they are discs, right? That's all we can actually say. Because the distance is so huge. We don't see the other side of the moon. We don't know if it's a sphere or if it's just a disk. It's round, right? So that's also something that people have to question if they think these objects in the sky are spherical. And then arguing that the Earth must be spherical as well, because all they see is a round circle in the sky. Okay? And it's like this. If Earth is the only planet, the only object in the universe that, how would you say, inhabits life, then the chances are really high it's also the only object that is flat. If you're coming from the theory that all the celestial bodies are spherical, but even that theory must be questioned if you don't have access to high-tech telescopes or anything like that. And even then, even if you are the richest man on earth and you have a rocket and you can go to a certain altitude, because you can only go to a certain altitude, even then you don't know if the moon is actually a sphere, because all you're still seeing is a circle. So it could still be flat, just circular. Or could have any shape, it could be just a surface and we're perceiving it circular. Also possible, because what I told you here is that everything has a horizon if there's an altitude involved. So if, for example, you have a certain altitude above Earth, you have a certain horizon. Okay, again, a circle. You don't actually see it as a circle, but it is a circle. All you see is the flat horizon. Anywhere you look, from this point, you look there, you see a flat horizon. But if you were to look onto yourself from bird view, okay, and you had an out of body experience, then you would realize, okay, it's actually a circular circumference horizon line around your point. Because to each, that's what a circle is, to each point, it has the same distance. If you have, of course, perfect view into all distances, it's a perfect circle. And let's say, for example, Earth, surface of Earth is higher around here, on the ocean, for example. There's mountains and everything. And then, of course, what you can see from Earth is much shorter, right? And it will not be a full circle. But in general, you can say that each horizon is a circumference around the observer's point, depending on the altitude. So altitude, what is altitude? Altitude is the relation, where do we have it here? The relation towards the flat surface. And so I'm at the end of this video actually. If you just came in here, you can re-watch this live, and I have explained everything about how night and day works, also on a flat earth, how it works every day actually. So you can re-watch it if you're interested in a few minutes.